Hello everybody, in this video we're going to be comparing Linux Mint and Zorin OS. So let's start with Linux Mint. Linux Mint is one of the most widely recommended Linux distros for beginners and honestly for good reason. Right away, the thing that stands out about Linux Mint is its interface. It's clean, functional, and looks familiar, especially if you're coming from Windows. You've got a bottom taskbar, a menu-style launcher, and system tray icons where everything is where you expect it to be, but Linux Mint comes in three different environments. First is Cinnamon, which is the most modern and default one. And then the next one is MATE, which is lightweight and traditional, and XFCE, which is extremely light and perfect for old or low spec machines. So Cinnamon is where most people start. It's modern, polished, but still easy to use. And even though it's not the lightest, it runs great on most systems. Now let's talk about the performance side. So Linux Mint is fast and stable. Even the Cinnamon edition feels snappy on machines with 4 gigabytes of RAM or more. If you're running on older hardware like a 2010 laptop with 2 gigabytes of RAM, switching to MATE or XFCE editions will give you amazing speed. Honestly, Linux Mint is one of the best plug-and-play solution if you're trying to revive old hardware without sacrificing usability. Now let's move on to what the applications come on Linux Mint. So Linux Mint ships with everything most users need. There's Firefox for browsing, and then there's LibreOffice for documents and spreadsheets, and VLC or Celluloid for media playback. And there's a simple file manager as well, and most importantly, Timeshift. Timeshift is like the system restore for Linux. It takes snapshots of your system, so if anything goes wrong, like a bad update, driver issue, you can roll back to a working state in just a few clicks. That's a massive win for beginners and advanced users alike. Now, on the topic of updates, Mint gives you full control. You get to choose how much you want to essentially update. So if you want just security patches or everything including kernel and driver changes, that kind of control means you're never forced into an update where you're in the middle of work. So Mint Update Manager also tells you which updates are safe and which are, a little bit on the other side, riskier. So even if you're cautious, you know what you're clicking. So now let's talk about stability. Linux Mint is built on Ubuntu LTS, so you get long-term support releases that are rock solid. You're not dealing with beta software here. This is a stable production-ready system with security updates for 5 years. And there's the community. Linux Mint has been around for a long time and has a massive user base. That means tons of tutorials, Reddit threads, YouTube guides. You'll never be stuck without an answer. Whether you're dealing with Wi-Fi drivers or looking for a theme, someone's already solved it and made a tutorial. Overall, Linux Mint is reliable, easy to use, and extremely well supported. If your goal is a system that just works without too much tweaking, this is probably it. Next, let's talk about Zorin OS. Zorin OS is a distribution that takes a different approach, I would say. Zorin puts a lot of emphasis on look and feel, and that's immediately obvious the first time you boot it up. Zorin's interface is elegant, clean, and visually modern. It's one of the best looking Linux distros out of the box, no question. And Zorin has its own built-in tool called Zorin Appearance that lets you switch your desktop layout with a single click, so you can make it look like Windows 11, Mac OS, or sometimes something like Ubuntu. So it's incredibly beginner friendly, and it's great for anyone who wants to customize without getting to themes, extensions, or terminal commands. Zorin OS comes in a few editions. There's Zorin Core, which is a free and aimed at everyday users type of OS, and there's Zorin Pro, which is a paid version with additional desktop layouts, pre-installed apps, and a focus on business or creative use. And there's also Zorin Lite, which uses the XFCE desktop and is designed for older or lower powered systems. And Zorin Core, based on GNOME, which gives it a modern look, but it's a bit heavier on resources, is a thing if you're running newer hardware. It'll run great, because if you've got something older, Zorin Lite is the better option and gives you most of the same features, I would say, in a lighter package. So now let's talk about the applications and daily usability. So Zorin ships with a browser, usually Firefox or optionally Chrome, and LibreOffice, a curated software store with Snap and Flatpak support, and sometimes even GIMP for image editing, and everything looks consistent and polished. Even the App Store feels more modern than what you would get in Linux Mint, in my opinion, and it's one of the cleanest experiences for new users. Now, here's a standout feature, I would say. There's Zorin Connect. This is a built-in tool that lets you sync your Android phone with your desktop. And you can send files, get photo notifications, and also what you can do with this is reply to texts, and even control your PC with your phone as a touchpad. And it's incredibly smooth and super useful if you're switching back and forth between devices all day. So Zorin OS is also based on Ubuntu LTS, so you get the same long-term stability and update support as Linux Mint. So updates are clean and unobtrusive, and you can configure how much you want to install and when, essentially. And the only real drawback, I would say, is the community size. So Zorin OS has a growing loyal user base, but I would say it's not quite as big as Mint's. That said, most Ubuntu tutorials still apply, and Zorin has solid documentation to guide you through setup and troubleshooting. So if Linux Mint is all about practicality and familiarity, I would say Zorin OS is about polish, flexibility, and forward thinking. It's one of the few distros that looks premium right out of the box. So what is my verdict? Which one should you pick between the two, Linux Mint or Zorin OS? So I would say the simple breakdown is Linux Mint if you want something lightweight and traditional, and a layout that looks and feels like Windows, and advanced control over updates, built-in restore tools like Timeshift, a distro that works on old or budget hardware out of the box. And I would say pick Zorin OS if you want a beautiful modern interface that rivals Windows 11 or Mac OS, and a built-in layout switching with one click, smooth Android phone integration via Zorin Connect, a sleek app store, and a refined user experience, and something that just feels premium and polished. Because both distros are based on Ubuntu LTS, both are stable and beginner friendly, and it really comes down to your personal vibe. Mint is utilitarian and rock solid. Zorin is elegant and customizable. And if you like clean, simple tools, go with Mint. If you want a little wow factor, I would say go with Zorin. So honestly, in between these two, the tools that are with Linux Mint or Zorin OS that have a bunch of overlap because they both share Ubuntu LTS are also a thing to consider, because Ubuntu is Linux's main distribution, and a lot of these distros are based off of that. So consider that it's not all completely different. And yeah, thanks for watching this video. Like and subscribe for more content like this, and I'll see you later.